Washington, D.C. was unusually quiet that morning, with a light rain misting the streets like a memory that wouldn't let go. Across from a modest veterans memorial, a small pop-up coffee cart stood beneath a canvas awning, run by 26-year-old National Guard officer Nadia Torres. On weekends, she operated Shield Brew part coffee stand, part community outreach. For Nadia, coffee wasn't just a drink. It was a way to serve connection, one warm cup at a time. That morning, an older man in a baseball cap and trench coat approached the cart. At first, she noticed the Secret Service, then she saw him. It was President Donald J. Trump, walking casually with almost no fanfare. She froze mid-pour. Trump glanced at the sign and smirked. "Courage Brew, huh? Think I could use a cup?" Snapping out of her shock, Nadia smiled. "Of course, sir." She handed him the steaming cup. "It's on the house." Trump glanced at her name badge. "You're a soldier, and you serve. Coffee? That's impressive." Nadia gave a small shrug. "Serving takes many forms, Mr. President." As he turned to walk toward the memorial, she hesitated. "Sir, there's something under that mug." "Don't throw it out before you finish." He raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, just nodded and walked on, coffee in hand. Nadia stood still, heart racing. The bottom of that mug held something deeply personal, something she never thought he'd see. And if he did, it might change everything. Trump sat alone on the memorial bench, the steam curling into the misty morning. The cup was warm in his hands. He wasn't sure why her words lingered, but they did. Slowly, he tilted the cup, letting the last sip swirl. Then he turned it over. Written in neat marker beneath the mug were 5 quiet words. "For my father. You forgot." Trump froze. The message hit harder than he expected. His fingers clenched. Slightly. For a moment, the drizzle disappeared. The Capitol behind him vanished, and only those 5 words remained. He looked back at the cart. Nadia was serving another customer. Eyes cast low, but they flicked up, and their gazes locked. Without a word, Trump stood and walked back, spoke up, her voice calm but unwavering. "With all due respect," she said, "my father didn't die because of one bad policy. He died because no one cared enough to follow through. You want numbers? I have names. You want reports? I have memories." The room fell quiet. One of the officials shifted uncomfortably. Trump looked at her, then around the room. "No more waiting," he said. "If this department can't track support for our veterans, then we'll rebuild it from the inside out." Cameras weren't rolling. There was no speech, no headlines, just a shift, a moment where something real began. Later that night, as Nadia stood at her cart once again, under the fading light, a message pinged her phone. New VA task force approved. First item, Elias Torres legacy reform. She read it twice, breath-catching. Crosstown, Trump stood alone at the veterans memorial, the empty coffee mug beside him. He looked up at the rain-softened sky and whispered, "Message received." Nadia stood firm. "My dad didn't need statistics. He needed a bed, medication, hope." The room went still. Every hour we argue, someone's mother loses sleep. A child waits alone in a hospital hallway. Trump scanned the table. "We're not waiting. This changes now." That evening, at a surprise White House press briefing, Trump stood with Nadia at his side. "Today," he said, "we launch Operation Valor Promise, a full overhaul of how we support our veterans and their families." Nadia's heart raced. "We're re-examining every denied claim from the last 15 years. No more lost files. No more red tape." She didn't expect applause. But what came next was an outpouring. Medals, letters, messages from across the country. One read, "My dad died waiting. Thank you for saying what we couldn't." The next morning, Nadia returned to her coffee cart. The line stretched around the block, not just for coffee, but for gratitude. A veteran in a wheelchair rolled up. "My son saw you speak. You said what we've been trying to say for years." He handed her a small military patch. "From one soldier to another, you earned this." Her hands shook as she took it. This wasn't about fame, it was about finally being heard. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived addressed to her mother. Dear Mrs. Torres, after reevaluating your husband's case, we deeply regret the delay. Effective immediately, you are granted full benefits and all owed back pay. Thank you for your husband's service and your daughter's voice. Her mother wept as she read the letter. And Nadia said nothing, just sat beside her, holding her hand. One voice, she realized, really could ripple across an entire nation. A week later, without cameras or headlines, Donald Trump showed up at their modest home. He sat at the kitchen table, eating tamales, nodding as Nadia's mother shared old photos of Elias. He'd have liked you, she told him. Trump smiled. Not everyone does, she replied. He loved honesty, and you kept your word. Trump looked at Nadia. Thanks for the coffee that morning, but more for what was under it. When Nadia returned to Fort Valor, she found something in her locker, a new mug with the presidential seal. Underneath, in gold lettering, were 5 simple words. Your father will be remembered. Tears welled in her eyes. Sometimes it only takes one person to restore dignity. Word of her story spread, and soon other service members began writing messages under their mugs too. For my brother, for those who came back broken, for the forgotten. A quiet movement was born. Cafes on military bases joined in. Message. Mugs became a new symbol of remembrance. Nadia's card evolved. It wasn't just about coffee anymore. It became a place for healing, for stories, for unseen heroes. When invited to speak at a local high school, she stood in uniform, nerves tight. You don't need a title to be powerful, she said. You just need courage. My father served this country, and I served him by speaking up. The crowd gave her a standing ovation. Afterward, a quiet girl approached. My mom's a veteran. Can I bring her coffee with a message too? Nadia smiled. You just started your own story. In Texas, a young barista heard Nadia's story and scribbled on a mug, for my uncle PTSD. Survivor, the local mayor, noticed that simple mug and was so moved. A bill was proposed to expand mental health programs for veterans across the state, all sparked by a single cup.
How long after?
Trump returned to Fort Valor for a ceremony. Nadia stood at the front, hands trembling as he announced, today. We recognize the service of Captain Elias Torres, posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Patriotism. Her mother wept beside her, and Nadia saluted the portrait now. Hanging proudly in the hall, this wasn't just recognition, it was restoration. She transformed Shield Brew into a non-profit, hiring veterans' families, supporting transition programs, and teaching others to speak through small, meaningful acts. Courage brew carts spread from D.C. to California, each with a mug wall holding messages, each a story. One day, an elderly man visited Nadia's cart. He didn't say much, just drank quietly. When he left, his mug read, "Thank you, I'm ready now." That night, his daughter came by, passed into sleep. She said softly, but he smiled all day, said someone finally listened. Nadia clutched the mug to her chest. A year later, a documentary crew followed Nadia and President Trump as they visited bases, listening to stories from soldiers and families. In one quiet moment, Trump held a mug and said, "Funny how something so small can say so much." The anniversary of her father's passing, Nadia received a final letter in Trump's own handwriting. Dear Nadia, your coffee changed my heart. Your father changed this country. He isn't forgotten because you didn't let him be. Deep respect, Donald J. Trump. Back at the memorial on another misty morning, Nadia placed one last cup beneath her father's nameplate. She turned the mug over. This time it read, "You were never forgotten." And somewhere in the breeze, it felt like he smiled.